Hey YouTubers, it's RcMike again. Here we are with another update of the Tamiya Jimny. We're going to just kind of pull it apart so you can kind of see what we got in it on our last Poor Boys RC Speed Challenge. We only went 12 miles an hour, which put us again dead last, but that's okay. What we've got running in here is a 35 turn motor. It's not really a very fast motor, of course, but we're just kind of getting the car dialed in right now. We're just doing some mild modifications just to make sure we can get it going straight before we start putting any speed into this thing. But at this point now, it's time to start kind of pushing the speed here with the intent to obviously not be last, but we'll see what we get. And anyway, we're going to put the actual stock motor in here, and we're going to push this stock motor just as hard as we can with a larger pinion gear. And you know, normally if you did that, you would heat this motor up pretty quick and you'd potentially burn it up. But doing high-speed runs, you're not running very long, and it doesn't tend to heat up to the point where you could potentially damage it. We're not too worried about potentially ruining the motor. And regardless, you know, when you're racing, sometimes it's not about longevity, it's about how fast you get to the finish line. So with that, we're going to put this faster motor in, which is just a stock motor, but it'll definitely go faster than 12 miles an hour. We are at 12.7 miles an hour. So we'll put that in and get the pinion gear all set, and we'll do a couple of runs just to kind of see where we're at. Kind of be interesting to see what speed we get out of it, but regardless, we'll put this in and mount it up and give it a run. And just like that, we've got the stock motor in the car, so we should get a little speed out of it. Nothing too crazy, but we'll have to see what it'll do. Again, we put the stock 540 motor in it, and I gave it a run. It didn't quite do what I was expecting it to, so we're gonna just re-gear it again. We're already at a 23 tooth, and I'm gonna try to put this 25 in. We'll see if that works. This motor has plenty of torque for what it's doing, just moving this little tiny car, and it has plenty of power, but the car is kind of geared a little bit low, so you need a fairly tall gear to get it to go fast. And if you don't have a fast motor, you've got to use tall gearing to get it to go quicker, which we're using basically a slow motor and slow gearing, and to get it to go fast is a little tricky. And about all you can do is change the gearing and hope for the best. So we'll stick this 25 on here. Changing this motor out's fairly easy. It looks like the 25 is about the biggest pinion you can put on this car without doing some modifications to the case and motor plate, and we're gonna try not to have to do that. At this point with this motor, we're not expecting a ton out of it, but I would like to get the speed I'm looking for, but we'll see. That feels like it's a little tight. This little side screw right here opens this up, so you can look inside there to see the gear mesh. And it's not super easy to see in there, but you don't want those teeth too tight, and you don't want them too loose either. You want them just right, just so there's a little bit of wiggle room in between the teeth, and then it should be good to go. We're going to try to revive ourselves a little bit. Oh yeah, I feel like that's going to make it faster already. So anyway, it looks like we got that in there okay. Put this guy back on. I've replaced a lot of the hardware with 3mm button heads and in some cases cap head screws. I don't like the Tamiya screws. They're a JIS screw, which is, it's similar to a Phillips. This is a Phillips driver, which everybody is familiar with, but Tamiya uses a JIS screw, which is actually close to a Phillips, but it's not quite the same. JIS is a Japanese industrial standard, and that is their equivalent to a Phillips. And like I say, they are interchangeable, but if you can get yourself a JIS screwdriver, you can tell the difference with the Tamiya screws. It just fits a little tighter. So that's a little tidbit of information for Tamiya cars, is they do use the JIS versus Phillips. Everybody just uses a regular Phillips, but getting a JIS and the Tamiya screwdriver is okay, but it's honestly not that great. I don't use it that often unless I can't find my regular screwdriver. But anyway, so we've got that in there. We've got that 25 tooth pinion in there. We're going to give it another try and see what we get. Hopefully we'll get the speed we're getting. I'm having some steering issues as far as going straight. We're going to have to deal with that a little bit, but in any event, we'll figure it out and try to get this thing going as best we can. So we've given the Jimny a run, and we're still not at the speed we're trying to get. It's not a terrible speed, but if we're gonna even be remotely entertaining in this speed challenge, we're gonna need to step it up a little. We've been at the bottom for the last 2 weeks, but we're gonna try to not be at the bottom this coming week. So, but without doing some modifications here, we're gonna be at the bottom again for sure. So, to get to the point here, I thought this stock motor would give me enough juice or enough power to at least get out of the bottom, or last place, shall we say. But I'm afraid that this motor's probably not gonna do it. So we're gonna just pull this off of here. And we've got the 25 tooth pinion on there, but that really didn't give us enough it didn't give us enough speed to justify keeping this motor. So we're gonna have to put that back in our motor box and dip into some other motors, which we just happen to have some other motors. We're going to go ahead and put this motor in. This is an HPI motor, which this is nothing super great, but at this point we're just trying to get off the bottom of the game here. Getting the right back set on these motors is a little tricky. I kind of eyeball it and just sort of place it up there, and it doesn't have to be perfect. But with this little car, you don't want that motor so far that it rubs the inside of the case, which that spur gear is just right next to it. But anyway, we're going to stick this guy in here and see if we can at least get a better run. Hoping that I can get to the number I'm looking for, but we'll see. Going fast is always a little tricky. You've got to be able to go fast and more or less control the car for long enough to get a speed out of it, and ideally not crash it at the end so you can keep running. Some of these guys are crashing their cars pretty significantly. Not sure why I took that out. Just for fun, we'll just spool this up to make sure that it's gonna work okay. Probably should plug it in. Plug these motor wires in, make it go a little better. That's definitely sounding a little more promising, but we'll have to see what it does. So we'll put it all back together. I still haven't figured out the steering issue. I'm afraid my servo is not quite good enough to center itself perfectly. The faster you go, the better electronics you need. You want the speed control and the servo to do a really good job at whatever it is they do, and it needs to work well. Otherwise, you can have some catastrophic issues. And steering is something that is always a problem with these cars. Getting it to go straight and at speeds can be a real challenge. But anyway, we'll get this buttoned up and we'll give it a run and see where we're at. So we're back with the Jimny. We've achieved the speed that I'm looking for. However, so we've achieved the speed that I'm looking for. However, it's kind of wandering, so the steering is still not quite dialed in, shall we say. It looks like the servo that I put in there, which was just a low profile Injora, which isn't anything too special, is not perfectly centering when it comes back and forth. So there's a good chance I'm going to have to eventually pull that servo out of there and put something a little better. The downside to some of these modifications is in a car like this, you'll use like a $20 servo and that's good enough. The car only costs $150 and it's kind of silly to spend another $150 on a good servo. So generally we wouldn't put anything like that in a car like this. So we'll swap this out, unfortunately, temporarily, but I'm probably not going to leave a $100+ servo in a car like this. But for this challenge, it's kind of looking like, in order to keep it going straight, I'm going to have to put a better servo in that thing. But for now, we're going to leave it as is, and then we're going to run it for the next week's speed challenge. I've got the speed that I'm looking for, and that's all we want to do for this week. So with that, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you next time, and keep those speeds climbing.